Welcome back to our video tutorial series about automated reasoning checks in Amazon Bedrock Guardrails. I'm Stefano. I'm a product manager in the automated reasoning team at AWS. In this video, I will show you how to validate and refine an automated reasoning policy. The first step is to go to the tests screen. Tests help you exercise the logic encoded in the policy, as well as the validation process for natural language. We exercise both and we exercise them separately. When automated reasoning checks validates an input Q&A, it first uses LLM to translate the incoming text into formal logic, and then applies mathematical automated reasoning techniques to validate that that logic is consistent with the rules encoded in the policy. The first step is to validate that the semantics of the policy are correct. And the easiest way to do that is to review generated scenarios. We simply click on this Generate button. Here, we present concrete scenarios that we believe are true based on the rules encoded in the policy. So in this case, for example, we're saying that if the refund method is cash, then the refund available days, when is the refund available, is equal to 0. So right away, that is correct. That's what the policy says. And in that case, we can mark it and say, yes, this can happen. When we say yes, that scenario is saved as a test. You can see it back here. Let's look at this next scenario. It's saying that the following 3 statements are true. If it's not a bundle purchase, and I'm not returning all the items in the bundle, then I'm not eligible for a refund. It is correct to say that I'm not eligible for a refund if I'm not returning all the items in the bundle. However, this is only true if it was a bundle purchase. So let's let the system know that. We say, no, this is not possible. And here the system asks us for some feedback on why it was not possible. Let's do that. Let's put that constraint in place. And let me show you what happens when I click Save and Close. In the previous video, we talked about annotations and how they're like notes we've made on this automated reasoning policy. I can go and review this annotation, and it shows me that on this scenario, this is the formal logic version of that scenario we reviewed. I left some feedback. At any time, we can apply these annotations. We could accumulate more, but let's do this change now. Let's tell the system that we want to apply this feedback. It will now start reasoning about the feedback we've given it and attempt to deduce the necessary changes to rules and variables in the automated reasoning policy to make my feedback true. This process can also take a minute. Once the system is done thinking about the possible changes, it presents us with a diff screen that allows us to review the changes it's proposing. It's proposing adding a new rule that makes it very explicit that if it was not a bundle purchase, then these things cannot be true. This is exactly what I intended to do. At this point, I can decide if I want to discard the changes, maybe I don't trust what it's done, or accept them and update the working draft policy to include this new rule. Now that we have applied the annotation, we can go review our tests. We can see that they passed. Let's switch to a test screen. And we can look that both, one we had indicated we expected to be correct, is in fact validated as correct. And the second one, the one we had indicated was invalid and we suggested a change for, also passed. In this case, passed means that when automated reasoning checks analyzed this sentence, found it to be invalid because of the new rule we created. By reviewing generated statements and scenarios, is how we can make sure that the semantics, the logical semantics in the policy are correct. Now, to see how automated reasoning checks would validate natural language statements, for example, from our chatbot, we can add and you test manually. And in this form, we'll specify a question and an answer, just like if it was from our chatbot. Let's start with an invalid response. So I'm going to ask, if I purchase something with a prepaid credit card, can I get a refund from it? And I'm going to give an answer that is not correct. I'm going to say that yes, you can receive a refund and it will reach you between 40 and 60 days from the return date. That is incorrect because the policy says that a refund for prepaid credit cards is 30 days. And therefore, I expect the result of this validation in my test to be invalid. Let's save the test. You see, it gets added to this list with an expected result as invalid, and it's ready to execute. Now we could execute the test from here individually. We can kick off an entire test workflow that will rerun all tests. But in this case, I'm going to open this specific test and start the validation from here. You can see that it's now queued and ready for running. And once the execution is completed, I will see the findings here. Findings are the output of automated reasoning checks. In this case, my test passed because the result was invalid. And we can see that the output was one finding. Each finding are the translations of the input Q&A into formal logic. If the input Q&A made multiple logical claims separately, then it would be reported as multiple findings. You can see that in this case, we translated it as our LLM laid out one premise, or a user in this case laid out one premise. It said that the refund method is prepaid credit card. And we made a claim against that premise. The claim is that refund processing day is at least 40 and no more than 60. And we return as invalid, and we said it's broke one rule. And the rule it broke, as expected, is that the refund processing days is no more than 30. When validating a test, always review the translations and the findings to make sure that the system understood your input Q&A correctly. Inspecting these translations allows you to drive improvements to the policies because they will highlight things that perhaps are ambiguous or wrong in the automated reasoning policy. In the next video, we will see how to refine a policy based on test results.